I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
Programming, a little note here. It's kind of raining where Kiki is right now, so if you hear like noises in the background, that's probably thunder and lightning.
Yeah, Thor is being a little annoying right now with the...
There it is.
I think he heard me. Yeah, so it's summer where I live, and that means random storms. So just sorry, we can't change the weather.
Also, we are going to be talking about an R-rated movie. Yes, I know. We said we weren't going to do that for August, but yeah, we're doing it. This is an R-rated movie. We are going to have an R-rated conversation. If you are one of our listeners that like to listen to the show with their little ones, and we have had messages of people who do. If you are one of those people, listener discretion is advised. I am not going to tell you how to raise your kid. So, on that note, let's get to talking about this fucking movie, Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion. A movie that I had heard a lot about for years, 20-something years, but I've never actually saw it. And I had heard about it. Again, this was 97, so Friends was still very much the show to watch. So, hey, it's a movie starring one of the peoples from Friends. It's going to get people watching it. But seeing the trailers and commercials and stuff, it really didn't get my vibe, and I clearly felt like I wasn't the audience for it. So I never really saw it until Kiki brought up the idea of doing the movie for the podcast, as the movie has now shown up on Hulu and Disney Plus here in the States.
Well, yeah. In order to get it, you have to have the Hulu or Hulu bundle. It's technically Hulu, not Disney Plus. Just in case you're looking for it to go watch it, which I suggest you do.
Now we got Hulu, Disney Plus, and Max bundle. Welcome back, cable.
Yeah. I will say, since we were talking about like R-rated discussion and everything, we had both discussed this off mic. Why is this movie rated R? And then the only thing we could think about is there's one scene where Romy kind of pretends that she's having sex with a guy to get something out of him, and she says a bunch of kind of lewd stuff, which in 97 would have been kind of very... Like, now that's just an average South Park episode.
Yeah.
And then also, I think the other reason we came up with was because Janine Garofalo's character tells people to fuck off kind of constantly.
And Mira Sorvino does get one F-bomb of her own. I wish Lisa Kudrow could have gotten one too, but I get that, again, this is the era where Friends is the #1 TV show in the world. Probably not good to have your TV sitcom star dropping F-bombs in your movie.
Yeah.
And they also mention hand jobs and jerking off.
But the thing is like, when you're watching it in 2024, you're like, oh, that's, it's not really that shocking considering the R-rated comedies now.
We just saw Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, no spoilers, but yeah. we have just seen Deadpool and Wolverine, which is an R-rated comedy, ? But yeah, I mean, the things that go on in that movie, and then go back and watch Romy and Michelle, which, when we put this on the list and when we were talking about, like, we won't be talking about an R-rated movie for a while, we weren't lying, because we didn't realize this was an R-rated movie. Like, I know that you hadn't seen it, but I watched it, like, constantly when it came out, and I was a teen and, all that kind of stuff. And it never once struck me, I think, that this was an R-rated movie.
Because even for 97 standards, minus the F-bombs, there really isn't anything in here that wasn't already in a PG-13 comedy that you would have seen in the same era.
Yeah. And a lot of the comedies that started coming out around this time, maybe just a little bit later, when you think of the R-rated comedies in the late 90s and early 2000s, you are thinking about things like American Pie, and you're thinking about There's Something About Mary, which are way more than this, And in my brain, that's kind of all linked together in a similar kind of time frame, And this movie is so weirdly PG to me compared to the other ones that came out in roughly the same time period.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So let's talk about who's in this movie. I mentioned Lisa Kudrow. We mentioned Janeane Garofalo, mentioned Mira Sorvino. But there's a lot of other people in this one. Obviously, Lisa Kudrow, Friends was like the #1 show on TV. So every studio wanted every member of the cast in something. It was around this time we got Scream and stuff like that. So they were everywhere.
Yeah. Also, Lisa Kudrow is in this because these characters of Romy and Michelle were based on a stage play, and Lisa Kudrow had been Michelle, I believe, in the stage play.
I was not aware that this was a stage play.
Well, this wasn't. It was a different thing called, Ladies' Room. The person who wrote the play that it was kind of based on, she wrote the screenplay for this.
Ah, okay.
So those characters of Romy and Michelle were in this stage play that she did. And Lisa Kudrow was in that stage play, as I think Michelle. And then when they did the movie, Lisa Kudrow had become a huge star thanks to Friends, and then they cast Romy from another huge star at the time, Mira Sorvino, who had just come off of winning a freaking Oscar. So, but yeah, this was also the time when Janeane Garofalo was everywhere.
Oh, Janeane Garofalo, I had such a crush on her. I blame whatever in my brain for goth girls on Janeane Garofalo, even though she wasn't a goth girl. Because she always had the eyeliner, always wearing black. That was just her thing.
Yeah, I was very, when around this time, I was very much yeah, that's just kind of me. All of her characters she played were just kind of me.
Yeah.
Except the character in this, I did not smoke and I was not intentionally hostile to people, but that's what my brain was doing. I was just better at hiding it.
And Alan Cumming, legend Alan Cumming.
Yeah, who at the time, now he's a legend, but at the time, I think this was one of the earlier things I saw him in. I had seen him in GoldenEye before, because GoldenEye had come out just a couple of years earlier, and I think that was the first time that he played a character that I was like, I recognize who that guy is. Then just after this, he would do Cabaret on Broadway, and I would see him on the Tonys doing that. And that would really, I think GoldenEye, Romy and Michelle, and then him being on the Tonys as the MC in Cabaret, I think were the things that were like, okay, this guy.
And then, of course, a few years later, he was Nightcrawler in X2.
Yeah.
And weirdly, one of the most interesting and very weird roles, Loki in Son of the Mask.
Yeah.
I know, we don't talk about Son of the Mask, I know.
I mean, there was a time there when he just kind of took whatever role, you know, because dude's got to eat.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting that no matter what role he ended up in, he just kind of gave it his all.
And he kind of does here, both in all three versions of his character, the high school nerd, the fantasy rich man, and the real life rich man.
Yeah.
Of course, Cameron Manheim, who at the time also had a bit of a run. She was on The Practice, which was started the same year this movie came out.
Yeah, and I think this is probably the first thing I ever saw her in, and I did not realize that she was in it because, you know, it was like she wouldn't become well known until after this, I think. You know, this movie has so many people that are like that, where it's like, you know, Justin Theroux is in this, and he's much more well known now, but this was one of his earlier roles. He's the cowboy, and I told you off mic that I was shocked to see Kristen Bauer in this because I know her from True Blood, and seeing her as this, like, you know, weird little mean girl bully chick in this, and I was like, oh, no, I know her as, like, the really sexy vampire chick from True Blood.
Yeah. Elaine Hendricks also in this movie. She has that Disney connection herself. She was in that remake of The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, which we should get around to doing.
That would be weird.
We did the original.
Yeah, we did the original a long time ago.
And of course, there are. If you just look in the background, there are a lot of you know, character actors that you see here and there that you'll go like, oh, you know, that person. I didn't realize they had like a short, you know, 5-second cameo in this, you know, but it's not like huge names. It's just if you watch a lot of movies, you recognize a lot of character actors, and a lot of them are in this film.
A lot of, hey, it's that guy.
Yeah, it's that guy, it's that woman, that gal, you know, kind of people. So, and we've talked before on here about how much I love those actors, because I'm a big supporter of character actors. So, yeah, if you're a person like me, you'll get a lot of people showing up in the background that you're like, oh, cool.
So let's get into the actual plot of this movie. Obviously, the titular Romy and Michelle, they're roommates, living in LA, doing what friends do, watching movies and making commentary about them. Who would ever listen to two friends making commentary on a movie?
Yep.
Who would ever? But, you know, and they find out that their 10-year high school reunion is coming up. And their lives really haven't changed much since high school. They go to clubs and no one wants to dance with them. And they kind of shove it up. Oh, there's no guys here. We'll dance with each other. They're kind of nowhere in their business life. Romy works as a cashier at a car dealership, constantly being hit on by the mechanic. And Michelle is unemployed, trying to find some work. She is a amateur fashion designer. She makes all of the clothes that Romy and Michelle wear, but she can't really find a job anywhere. The only job she seems to be qualified for, despite her own amateur fashion techniques, is at a discount clothing store, which she walks away from because that's not what she wants to do.
I'm gonna say something here. I know that this was more like a, Gen X-y kind of movie.
Mm-hmm.
But man, does this really hit different for millennials watching it as adults.
Yeah, two people in their 40s watching this movie is just that gut punch.
Well, the thing is like these they're supposed to be 28, and it's their 10-year reunion. We just passed our 20-year reunions, not long ago. And the thing is that this whole thing for like a Gen X audience in 97, for you to go to your 10-year reunion and it's like, oh no, I don't really have like a career, and I'm not married, and I don't have any kids or whatever 10 years out of high school. That was like a horrible tragedy, for the kind of Gen X-y, whatever of the time. If you move it up to like a millennial reading in modern day, it's like these two are doing okay. They got their own apartment. At least one of them has enough of a job to pay for an apartment on Venice Beach in LA.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, that was 97, and I don't know what the rent was like at the time, but, their apartment seems okay, and Romy is the only one bringing in money, and they have enough money to, like, rent an apartment on Venice Beach, go to the club every night, take constant classes at the gym, because they're always at the gym doing, like, cycle classes and boxing classes and like all kinds of stuff. So that's got to take money, Their closet is full of clothes, which granted, Romy, I mean, excuse me, which granted Michelle has made a lot of them, but that still costs money,
The
as
materials,
someone, as someone who has made, her own clothes before, it still costs money to make your own clothes, So they seem to be doing okay on whatever Romy is making as at her cashier job at the Jaguar dealership. The thing is that if you watched this in 97, you were like, okay, yeah, they're kind of losers, because at 28 you should be farther along than this. And if you watch it kind of for how the world turned out for us since this movie came out, for like our generation and the people born after us, you're like, these chicks are kind of living the life, like,
especially, as more and more of our generation, the millennials and Gen Z, are choosing not to have children.
Well,
So,
I mean, it's also like, they're in a place that they want to live. Like, granted, they haven't done all the things they wanted to do, but they seem to be relatively stable. It's There's only 2 of them in the apartment,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of impressive nowadays, One of them has a stable job that's not a gig economy job. It's like, you kind of look at their life and you're like, okay, that's not. And the one job is able to support 2 people. Because
Yeah.
it's obvious that Romy is supporting Michelle as well.
Yeah.
So it's like one income with 2 adults, and they're doing okay. And you're like, all right.
And we have friends that live in the LA area who, with one job, is barely making it.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're but the thing is it's not just for most people, like, one job now will not do a lot,
Hmm.
So it's really kind of interesting to watch this back in the way the world has not progressed, but maybe regressed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to say, but like the way the world is now and the way that they were thinking about it in 97 when this movie came out, of like where you should be in life, what those markers are in life. Because I was watching this, like I said, I hadn't seen this in ages, and you had never seen this at all. And I don't know how it hit you, but I'm watching it and I'm like, man, I forgot how good their lives were.
Really? I mean, honestly, it's not, again, if one job at yes, it's a Jaguar car dealership, but it's still a car dealership, is enough to sustain an apartment on Venice Beach and give them pretty much freedom to do whatever they want with their lives. It's not a bad gig, even for 97.
Yeah. And I realize that this is
Fantasy. This is a movie.
yeah, this is a film or whatever, but it's still like, damn.
Also, note, they're watching Pretty Woman. It's owned by Fox, which means Disney owns the movie now. That should be on the list.
Yeah. However, I like that they're kind of making fun of the movie, but you can tell it really gets to Michelle, She's just like, oh, it makes me so, like, emotional when they finally let her go shopping, like.
It's like she's always wanted to go shopping in those fancy Rodeo Drive shops, and yet she doesn't make that kind of money to even afford to be let in the door.
Well, I mean, we see throughout the entire movie there is a very strong thing about, like, Michelle is meant to be a designer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's everything about her is very keyed into fashion. And so it's less the like Pretty Woman thing and more that she's just like, you have denied this woman access to fashionable clothing. How dare you?
And she does come off as very ditzy. And again, that is just, no offense, but that's what Lisa Kudrow was known for. Phoebe from Friends was known as a ditzy character. And unfortunately, for a lot of those early roles in film for Lisa Kudrow, she was kind of pigeonholed into basically being Phoebe for a while. So in the character of Michelle isn't seen as very intelligent, at least when it comes to pretty much everything else outside of fashion. To fast forward a bit, when we get to that dream sequence, she's able to explain how to make the adhesive of a Post-it note and how it works and how it functions off the top of her head. That is not someone that is stupid. Ditzy, yes, but not stupid. And I was telling you off mic before we got on that it really feels that, at least in Michelle's own mind, that she's been held back. Whether that is being held back by her own insecurities or whether that was being held back by staying friends with Romy for as long as she has, something has held her back from being the success that she could have been out of the gate of high school. Maybe she couldn't afford those big any kind of fashion college, for lack of a better term, and then she just came up and made her own clothing. But it feels like if situation was different for Michelle, she could have been a great designer right at the beginning of the movie.
It's a little bit interesting to me that in the dream sequence, she is still connected in a way to Romy. Like, when she has that dream sequence, we see that even in her dream, she did not really go on to do anything. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
She just, like, married a rich guy. And she is still holding on to the most changed for the better medal that she wins in her dream, along with Romy.
Mm.
So it seems to me that even in her fantasy, she is not able to go on and do anything without Romy.
Mm.
And maybe that's why the movie keeps them together at the end. Like, they are better as a pair, but they needed more for Michelle to step up a little bit.
Mm.
Because at the beginning of the movie, Romy is kind of doing all the heavy lifting. And she doesn't seem like, she seems to have faith in Michelle, but neither of them are in a position where they can do anything to really get themselves farther in life.
Yeah, there's a big hurdle in their way, and they don't know how to get past it. And when they find out about the high school reunion, they start their plan to make themselves appear more successful than they already are. Okay, we're going to get boyfriends. How do we get boyfriends? So we're going to go to the club. We're going to go on a dating show. We're going to go to AA meetings and meet men. And it's like, it falls short because everything's a bust. And all Michelle has to do is just get steady work. And like I said, the only job that seems interested in hiring her is a discount clothing store, which that's not where she wants to be. Even though that they want to hire her, it's not where she wants to be. She wants to be in the high-end fashion district, but they won't even listen to her. So, like, there's something blocking their way of that success. I mean, we later find out what it is. Again, fast forwarding, it's money. Ain't that how it always is? The one thing that prevents you from reaching over that hurdle to success is money.
Yeah.
And once they finally get that money from Alan Cummings' character to start their business, everything clicks into place. They're successful. At the end of the movie, they have their own fashion store, and they're successful. Michelle's designs are selling faster than they can make them. So that's it. That's the thing. They just needed someone, for lack of a better term, they needed someone to believe in them.
Yeah, and
they don't even believe in themselves at the beginning of the movie.
Well, and the thing is that, I mean, you've known me long enough to know that that's kind of always been my philosophy in life.
Mm-hmm.
is that people don't get anywhere on their own. They only get somewhere if they have help from, society or from someone else believing in them or helping them out or whatever. There's nobody who's self-made. And the thing is that we see their backstory in high school, and we see that they probably had just as much promise as anybody else in high school that they went to high school with. But they were among the bullied kids.
Yeah, they were not the popular kids.
But the thing is that it does kind of show what a lot of the, I think what the Gen X and millennial kind of group, at least those of us who kind of are in that kind of border region, between Gen X and millennials, I think that that's kind of the one thing we learned, and movies like this were the things starting to talk about that, is that the people who peak in high school, like the people you always think of in high school is like, wow, they're going to go far. They're the really pretty athletic ones or whatever. And then you find out what happened to them later, and you're like, oh, that was literally the best time of their life.
I mean, you're even seeing it now, because now we have social media and we see them. Oh, wow, you have total peaked in high school energy.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they find out when they get to the real reunion, is they look back on all their bullies, well, all of them except for the one. But, they look at all these women who made their lives hell, and they are all just like in unhappy marriages with lots of kids, probably from at least the main girl, her husband, the football star, she was the cheerleader and he was the football star, and Romy had the big crush on the football star, and you find out that, like, after high school, they basically immediately got married, and he took the only job he was really able to get, which was working for her dad's construction company, which was not what he wanted to do. And she immediately started having kids, which was apparently not what she wanted to do. Not that there's anything wrong with having kids if that's what you want to do, but it just seemed like that kind of came in between her and what she wanted to do. Because now she has a husband that she may not find as interesting as she did in high school, now that she's becoming an adult. And now they have a bunch of children. And he admits to Romy towards the end of the movie that, like, he's not even sure if all the kids are his, especially not the most recent one, because apparently she's been sleeping around on him. So, like, they're miserable, and you get the sense that the other bullies that are there and pregnant, like, that their lives are kind of miserable too. And, like, it has nothing to do with the kids, but, like, you just have a feeling that, like, they married the wrong people, maybe married too young, maybe.
Societal pressures, people feel that they have to get married at a certain age, have to have kids, because that is what society has deemed normal. And people fall into those tropes, and then they end up in unhappy marriages and in unhappy lives. Now, I'm not saying, again, there's nothing wrong with that. If that is what you want in your life, if you want a happy marriage, if you want to have a lot of kids, if that is your want in life, if that's your want in life, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. But as we see in the movie, as the movie is telling us, they are saying we are in happy marriages, we are happy where we are, And the fourth bully, who has gone on to be career woman working for Vogue magazine, turns to them and say, sure, you keep telling yourself that. Like, she can see through the bullshit.
Yeah.
Because she was part of that group. She knew the bullshit that they were all telling. All four of them were telling each other the same lies back then in high school. We see the one scene where they're talking to each other, and the one bully who went on to work for Vogue said, hey, you know what? They're not, Romy and Michelle aren't such bad dressers. And then they kind of get the stare of death at her. You want to, like, in a stupid way. Yeah. So it's like the four of them already know they're bullshitting each other. They bullshit themselves into wanting this life that they may not even want.
Yeah, and I think that one of the other things is that maybe even unintentionally, like intentionally or not, maybe everybody was making somebody else's life hell in school.
Yeah, that seems to be this whole thing. The bullies were making Romy and Michelle's life hell. Were Romy and Michelle making other people's life? In a way, yeah, because Ellen Cummings' character had the biggest crush on Michelle, but because he was kind of a dork, she wanted nothing to do with him. And Ellen Cummings' character kind of breaks Janine Garofalo's heart because she falls in love with him. She makes it clear, I didn't have a crush on him. I loved him, but he was in love with you.
And I feel like that's kind of, if there's one thing in this movie that's really toxic, it kind of is that part of the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, it was still the common trope when we were growing up and when this movie had come out that, like, the unrequited love person that just stands next to you all the time and, like, whatever, like, you kind of owe them for being that person.
Mm.
Which is so not true. And I think one of the best parts of the movie is, even though Janine Garofalo's character has that whole thing of, like, you made my life hell because the guy I was in love with you. She sees him again at the end of the movie. She sees Alan Cummings' character, and he's had the glow up now. He's a millionaire. He shows up in a private helicopter,
Mm.
And he shows up like, I mean, he's still a little dorky, which is...
That's just Alan Cumming.
Yeah, but, like, he's got the tennis shoes on because he invented the special rubber for the tennis shoes, and then, like, he's got the really nice, like, vest on, but, like, his suit jacket is, like, way too big and not quite tailored enough for him, which is slightly dorky, like, I like that. I like that there are these little touches that you can still see the remnants of it, even though he's, like, really rich now,
But, his face is cleared up. He's got a better hairstyle.
Yeah, I mean, but he looks sexier because he's, Alan Cumming, and they're not, like, making him look dorky. But, he's got the glow up now. He's got the money. He should be, like, everything she should want. And Janine Garofalo's character sees him now in his, like, evolved state or whatever. And she goes, like, wait, that's the dude I was in love with? Okay, I was fucking crazy. Never mind.
And she seems, other than the Mean Girls, the only one in the high school that really hasn't changed. She's still dressing in all black. She still has the eyeliner. The only thing is that she invented a new kind of paper for cigarettes that burns faster because, as we see in the flashback, she wanted a cigarette that she could smoke between class periods.
Yeah. But I really liked that bit because, like, I don't know if you've ever had the thing where you, like, run into somebody from, like, when you were in school with them and you're like, oh man, I thought you were just absolutely the coolest person ever, or like, I had such a crush on you, back when we were teenagers or something, and then you run into them as an adult and you're like, did I have a stroke as a kid? Like, was I brain damaged in my youth and I didn't know it? Like,
And it's also
because
is that he's in a way no longer the dorky guy she fell in love with. She fell in love with the dork. And now that he's no longer the dork, there's still dorky elements. She's over it.
but the thing is like I said, you can still tell he's the dork.
Yeah.
But it's just now he's a dork with money,
So he can afford a stylist.
So he can afford a stylist. It's like, he just doesn't, like, dress like a dork anymore,
Yeah.
But, like, the funny thing is that you're talking about how, like, the only one that hasn't changed since high school is Janine Garofalo's character. But the thing is she has, because she's had the same glow up that Alan Cummings' character has, because she also has money now. Like, not as much as him, but she also invented a thing that made a lot of money.
Mm.
And so if you look back at the high school stuff and then look at what she's doing now, like, yes, she has like a very similar aesthetic in that she's still wearing all black. She's still got this kind of goth kind of thing about her, but her clothes are much better. Her hair is much better. The way she holds herself is more assertive, like, she has changed. It's just that, like, some things are phases and some things are not. And we all assume that certain things in people's, like, everything in your life is going to be a phase, like, oh, well, when you were younger, you liked, XYZ, and now you're an adult and you're not going to like that anymore. And it's like, well, for some people that's true, and for other people, that's not a phase, And it seems that her not a phase was that she really likes black and eyeliner and, like she just likes that aesthetic. But now that she's grown up and has money, she can do that aesthetic on a little bit higher level. It seems like for Alan Cummings' character, that was not his aesthetic. That was just what he was able to wear, and he didn't understand anything about, like, fashion or whatever. So he was like, oh, now I'm rich. I got somebody to dress me so that I look better,
And like with it, there's this all talk of there's always someone you hurt in high school, and Janine Garofalo's character is like, well, I never hurt anybody in high school. I was just on my own. And here comes Cameron Manheim's character, who has always tried to be her friend throughout high school and always gets blown off. And, well, yeah, you hurt me because all I wanted to do was be your friend. And you told me to fuck off. Oh, I finally hurt someone. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of makes her feel like she wasn't the bottom of the barrel in that sense,
Yeah.
Which is kind of a shitty way to feel, but at the same time, you kind of get it.
Yeah, no one wants to be the bottom of the pecking order.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. And when she finds out she was never in the bottom of the pecking order, Cameron Manheim's character makes her feel better.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of the one, like, really shitty thing she does, but you kind of can understand it a little bit if you were a bullied kid in school.
Yeah.
But the thing is that there's all these misconceptions that we see, when people come back to the reunion and they're like, You know, because Janine Garofalo is like, oh my goodness, I always thought Romy and Michelle had it so great. And like you see their lives and they didn't have it so great. And then they were like, we always thought that the like group A bully girls had it so great. And then you see their lives and they weren't having a good time, you know?
Grass always greener mentality.
Well, no, I think it's just that high school is awful for everyone and we need to recognize that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Janine Garofalo's character looks at Romy and Michelle. Well, they're pretty and they're tall and they're blonde, so of course
Eventually they're blonde.
Well, yeah. So eventually they're so of course they're going to be successful based on their looks, and will look at the A team and they're popular and they have all these dreams of being weather girls and stuff, and they're obviously going to be successful. And then you have the goth chick who's like smokes cigarettes behind the school, who no one thought would be any kind of success, and then becomes a very rich person herself by inventing this cigarette paper. I want to talk about this dream scene because it's like the entire second act of the movie is this 30-minute dream sequence. As soon as they reach the reunion, it becomes a dream sequence, and there are some subtle parts where you can kind of tell, wait, something's not right here. And then there's parts towards the end where it really hits you on the head. This is a dream sequence. And for me, the part where it finally hits me that it is a dream sequence is when Lisa Kudrow, Michelle, gets hit by the limo and is not injured.
Yeah, that is such a funny moment because she gets hit by the limo and then she bounces along the top of the limo being like, ow, 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 ow. It's just such a funny moment and she plays it so well.
And I mean, that's just Lisa Kudrow. Then he gets out, she gets up like nothing's wrong. Here's Alan coming in weird prosthetics because in her dream he had a facelift. Or he had cosmetic surgery to give himself a new face. It's still Alan Cumming, but they have some prosthetics on his face to make his nose look different and his cheeks look different.
And also they give him contact lenses to make his eyes really blue,
mm-hmm.
which they're not. He has dark eyes in real life. Mm-hmm. So if you notice in the dream sequence, they give him these like bright blue contact lenses.
And then he literally flies out of the limo.
Yeah.
That, I mean, again, if you were not already included in that this was a dream sequence, that got you. Like, he literally flies out of the limo after having sex with Michelle in the back of the limo. And again, since this is Michelle's dream, maybe all along she did have a crush on the guy or did like him. She just didn't like the fact that he was a dork.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that maybe that was always there a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Because she makes it clear that she wants nothing to do with him. She hopes to not see him at the reunion, and then finds out he's rich. And then in her dream sequence, it's like I'm going to have sex with this man because he's rich. And of course, the big thing is that the cars are in the event, driving out the front door. But again, by this point, you should already be clued in. It's a dream sequence, especially since Lisa Kudrow is not wearing a top.
I think one of the things that clued it in for me first, and it's so subtle, but when they go in there at first, there is the point where the four bullies have cocktail drinks that all match their outfits. So like one of them is wearing pink and she's got this like really pink fruity drink, and one of them is wearing purple and she's got like a martini glass with some kind of purple thing in it. And one of them's wearing blue and she's got like a blue cocktail, and so like all of them have these like, and I was like, that's weird, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that was the first time, you know, when I was watching the movie like early on where I was like, something seems not right here. What's interesting is that it was pointed out to me that the dream sequence reunion is being held at the hotel from the TV show Dynasty.
Oh.
And I think that that's another kind of clue into Michelle's mind, because as somebody who's like very into fashion and stuff, she probably would have grown up being like very into Dynasty, because that was the big show that had all the like fashionable women and the, you know, so the fact that when she imagines her reunion, she's walking into the hotel from Dynasty is kind of funny. I think that's just another little. There's so many like really cool things that kind of foreshadow where these two are going to end up, and most of them have to do with Michelle's designer instincts.
I wanted to ask one thing. Since there is a significant portion of this movie that does take place in flashback, what was your thoughts on the, for lack of a better term, Grease style of having the 30-year-old actors play their teenage selves? Or, because for me, it's like, I get it, because you want these characters to be recognizable throughout the movie, especially when we hit the actual reunion. But it feels like, could they not have had teenage actors or early 20-something actors playing the high school versions of these characters? I don't know how you felt about that.
I think that I liked it because they were doing it for comedic purposes. Like, you're really not supposed to believe that they are the teenage version of themselves. I think you're supposed to believe that this is their memory of themselves. And so they're kind of just seeing themselves as they are now, back in these memories, because a lot of it is kind of minor fourth wall break, and I don't know if you noticed that because so much of it is like so subtle, but like the first time they really do kind of a flashback to high school, and they're doing the outdoor lunch scene. You know, the bully is sticking magnets on Michelle's scoliosis brace and all that kind of stuff. Which, by the way, my grandmother had those magnets, those exact same refrigerator magnets. And it was hilarious for me watching the movie. I was like, oh, that brings back childhood memories. But when it comes back from the flashback, they comment on little things like, and can you believe she stole your burger like that? You know, or whatever, which are things that you're probably not going to remember if you're just talking about things. You know, if that was supposed to be the two of them just talking about, like, hey, remember when we were in high school and we got bullied? Oh, yeah, I remember that time she stuck, like, magnets on my brace or whatever. And you kind of understand when you're watching a movie that us as the audience is seeing the full context, probably how it happened. But that the characters probably don't remember every single word spoken and every moment of that. And the fact that when it cuts back to the two of them in the diner or whatever, looking at the yearbook, the fact that Michelle is like, Yeah, and look at how she just stole your burger right there at the end or whatever. It's like they're watching the movie with us
Mm.
and commenting on it. And so I think that's how we're supposed to understand the flashbacks, is not that this is really the actors playing the high school versions of themselves, but this is just kind of their weirdly shaded memories of what everybody was.
Mm.
So, I mean, I don't know how it hit for you, but that's I always found it funny. Um in that kind of like, I don't know, community theater sort of way where you have to be like, and now do a flashback, shove a weird wig on them and to just be like, yeah, this is supposed to be 20 years ago, you know?
Yeah, I get that. But, again, them being played by younger actors would happen in the sequel. We'll get to the sequel. Obviously, their cover story that they were the creators of Post-it notes fails miserably because you did not invent Post-it notes. But it was I get their reasoning. Let's talk about something that everybody uses and that no one knows where they come from, and they come up with Post-it notes. And like I said, Michelle in her dream sequence able to perfectly describe the adhesive of a Post-it note and how it works and all of that, coming from herself. Like, she's just, it's her own mind. And then Janine Garofalo comes in, no, you didn't. 3M created it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that if you're going to be the type of person who's like, why don't we come up with a story about we invented something? I think the funniest thing to me is that they come up with a product that was already in use when they were in high school. Because like Post-it notes would have already been a thing when, before they graduated high school, they weren't as ubiquitous as they are now. Um, but they were already in the 80s, uh, a well-known product. So they would have already been in use before these two graduated high school. Which, if you're going to be like, we're the ones who invented it, at least pick something that's been invented since you got out of high school.
Yeah, at least within the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they tried. And they're wearing these black business suits to try to show off that they're successful. And when their story is a bust, the Ultimate has said, fuck it. We don't need to impress them. We don't need to impress anybody. Let's just be ourselves. And if they don't like it, that's their problem. Which is lucky and interesting that they just happen to have a spare set of clothes in there. A spare set of, I assume that these were going to be dresses that they would have gone to a club with after the reunion.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty long drive. Like, I looked it up, and that's like an 8-hour drive or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I doubt they were going to go to the reunion and then immediately turn around and drive back.
Mm-hmm.
So they had probably just packed extra clothes for, staying in a hotel or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe with family while they were back in Tucson. So, yeah, I mean...
And let's talk about Romy's little blue dress that you made the mention off mic about.
Yeah, and it turns out I did kind of look it up, and I joked about the fact that Romy's dress has like the Star Trek Delta shield on it and like little bits and pieces on it that I said made it look like Starfleet clubwear or something.
Mhm.
And I kind of looked into it, and it seems like that was intentional. And it seems like that was a request from Mira Sorvino, because apparently she was a big Star Trek fan.
Going by the year that the movie came out, their high school years was their senior year was 1987. 2 years later, The Next Generation would have come out. So it's possible that in this universe, that Romy and Michelle would have at least watched one episode of The Next Generation at some point.
Well, I mean, they lived together, and, it would have already, by that point, Next Generation would have been off the air, and, Deep Space Nine would have been a going thing, and, all that kind of stuff. But, like, it is kind of interesting that, like, apparently Mira Sorvino was like,
Mira Sorvino's a Trekkie.
yeah, I didn't see that one coming, because it had been forever since I had seen this movie, and I guess it just never hit me when I watched it the first time around. But yeah, that's the rumor, at least. I don't know how true that is, but
I mean, wouldn't there have been a credit to Paramount for the Star Trek logo use?
I don't know. But
and I just love that Romy just chews the mean girls out about it. You have miserable lives, and we're living our best lives, and you just want to be a bitch to put people down. Go fuck yourselves.
Yeah. And I like that they were just like, hey, we're gonna have fun as just us.
The best person you can be is yourself. And I do like that that's kind of the lesson in the movie. They try to be someone they're not. And in the end, they just accept themselves for who they are, and they have a blast.
Yeah.
Then, of course, Alan Cumming comes in, and he...
Yeah, we kind of hear people talking about him at the reunion, like, oh, I hear he's, like, really rich now, or whatever, And then he comes in, and he, like, looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He has that great moment. There's that moment between Sandy and Michelle where Michelle's like, wow, you're probably the most successful person in our class. And he's like, well, if you consider owning 5 houses and having a full-time chef and having a staff of 24 and having, like, he names off all this stuff he has, and he's like, if you consider that successful, then yeah, I guess.
But of all the things he has, there's one thing he doesn't have, the one thing really money couldn't buy, and the girl he fell in love with in high school, Michelle. Which, 10 years on, my dude, you're still holding that candle. It is a bit on the creepy side, but I get that this movie needed a happy ending.
Well, but I'm going to kind of say something here. We have the kind of great ending scene.
Mm-hmm.
He walks in and he's all like, hey, will you dance with me? Because there's, we see what happened at their prom where he was like, also, this is funny to me. They say that their prom is literally on the last night of school ever. Who the fuck has their prom on the last night of school ever? That doesn't happen anywhere.
It usually happens in the spring, which gives you at least at least 2 months, if that, of...
Yeah, I mean, you have prom, and then you, like, have finals and finish up and everything, and then you graduate. Yeah, anyway, but for Romy and Michelle and like their weird ass.
I think that's how they
school.
remember it. Like you said, I think this is how they
Yeah,
remember
I mean,
it.
I can kind of see, yeah, with my own logic there thrown back at me. Yeah, you're kind of right. I think that maybe they're just remembering it as like this was the last important thing we did. It wasn't graduation, it was prom. Yeah, they seem like those type of people. So yeah, maybe that's the joke I've been missing all these years. You're right. Um, but we have the thing where like we have a series of people who get the courage up to ask their big high school crush if they want to dance. And so Romy asks the football player, and he's like, "Yeah, sure," and then he ditches her. Um, and she waits all night along with Michelle, and like he never comes for that dance, and she's really sad. And then Michelle's like, "Well, I'll dance with you," and that's
And that starts their tradition of dancing with each other
yeah,
at clubs and everything because no one else wants to dance with them. They even make a joke of, hey, if no one else wants us, we can have each other. And uh, Romy is like, yeah, I never really thought about having sex with a woman. Ask me when I'm 30.
yeah. Which, according to this movie, is going to be like 2 years. So Sandy asks Michelle, like, "Will you dance with me?" And she's immediately like, "No." He just like, she just walks away.
And Janine Garofalo says, I'll dance with you. No. I
And,
would. No, yeah. He says I would, but you're too mean.
well, no, he says it's only good if you are in love with the person. And it totally shatters Heather because she's like, "I am in love with you, you absolute idiot. Like, you jerk. How can you have not realized it this whole time, And she screams at him, and she screams at Toby, who happens to show up like at the wrong moment. So you can see where that would like
Yeah, she's had it with him.
cause a wound, you know.
Yeah.
But
It's the fact that he also says you're being, unreasonable, you're being unnecessarily mean. Like, I'm being unnecessarily mean. You just totally invalidated my feelings. Go fuck yourself.
yeah. Um which it's like, again, you feel bad for everybody involved because everybody's been there.
Yeah.
Everybody's, especially, oh my goodness, especially in high school.
Mm.
Like, I know me, I had like a crush on like, 6 or 7 different people who like could not bother to give me the time of day.
Mm.
You know? So it's like I feel her, but it's like when you look back with the perspective of an adult, or at least the perspective an adult should have, you understand, like, I mean, yeah, it sucks, but nobody ever owes you their affection. If things don't work out, things don't work out, and that's just kind of the way it is. And it's like, yeah, it hurts and stuff, but okay, move on.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel bad that they kind of kept having this kind of toxic idea of that. But I do like, what I wanted to say was, you were talking about like, oh, the happy ending or whatever. You know, at the reunion, they kind of do the thing of, let's try prom night again. So the football player who's now in the awful marriage with the cheerleader bully chick, he's like, hey, Romy, let's go to a nearby hotel and have an affair on my wife because she's having affairs on me and I don't care and, whatever. And Romy gets her revenge by being like, yes, go get us a hotel room, get completely naked, wait for me, I will be there. And then she's like, yeah, I'm not going to show up, screw him. And all, but, Sandy shows up having his glow up, being all rich and stuff, and he's like, oh, Michelle, I was always in love with you. Can we have our dance now that you denied me at prom? And she goes, yes, but only if Romy can dance with us. And then they do what is, of course, the big memorable scene from the movie, which is the time after time dance. And I think, like, everybody my age that was into this movie when it came out desperately wanted two friends to learn this with them.
And I love how this is happening. Heather Janine Garoppolo's character comes back after saying, wow, I love that man. Forget it. She comes back, sees him dancing with Michelle and Romy, and then just storms out again.
Yeah.
So it was like she changed her mind at some point after storming out the first time. Oh, he's finally dancing with that girl he had a crush on back then. Fine, whatever.
I think it's more that she comes back in and sees them dancing and she's like, yeah, they're going to have the perfectly happy ending, which they kind of don't have. There is a kiss between Sandy and Michelle just before they get in the helicopter, and, he's all like, yeah, let's the three of us, go off together. But the thing is that the real happy ending is that Sandy believes in, Michelle and by extension Romy enough to loan them money to start a business. And Michelle is a good designer and Romy is apparently a good businesswoman. So they're doing really, really successfully. But we don't hear like, and also I'm dating Sandy now. Or like, it seems like Romy and Michelle are just platonically together or whatever, doing their business. Sandy is maybe a boyfriend, but maybe just a really good friend who loaned them money to start a business. But the point isn't like they went back to the high school reunion and one of them found the love of their life, In fact, the only person that found the love of their life was Heather.
Yeah, so through the flashbacks, we see that Heather likes to smoke behind the school, and there's another kid in a cowboy hat that also likes to smoke behind the school, but he's kind of... his excuse was he was too scared to talk to her, so he flicks his cigarette at her whenever she asks for a light.
Yeah, he never, says a word to her in any of the flashbacks. But then he shows up at the reunion and he's like, hey, you're still as hot as I remember you or whatever. I was just too shy to say anything to you. And she's like, what? And then at the end of the movie, as the helicopter flies over, they're just like making out in a field next to the hotel or whatever.
Cause I just love that reaction. It's like, well, fuck it. What have I got to lose? Like, that's literally what she says. Like, I could hook up with this guy, or I could just brush him off. Fuck it. I just saw the guy I've been in love with for the last decade plus dance with the woman he's in love with. I'm going to get me mine. At least that's my interpretation of the scene.
But also, I think we don't really know a lot about him, but, either it's just going to be like a quick, they're going to have a fling and it's going to make both of them feel a little bit better about it. Or this is a guy who has a lot in common with her, and maybe it's, a more permanent thing. We don't know, because that's where the movie ends.
All we get is that she's shopping at Romy and Michelle's shop for getting out of her own comfort zone by wearing a white dress as opposed to a black one.
Yeah. It's more that there's a happy ending for the two girls, but that the only way that a man kind of comes into it is that he loaned them money. He was finally in a position to loan them money.
And like I said before, it feels like they had that hurdle that was preventing their success, and this was to get them over that hurdle of Sandy giving them the money to start their own business, a successful business that they, as Romy says, they're years away from paying him back. So it seems like they've only just opened it, because it only fast forward 6 months.
Yeah.
And if they're still on Venice Beach or Rodeo Drive or whatever, that is not cheap real estate.
That's still kind of awesome, though, that they would be able to turn enough of a profit and pay him back in that little of a time, though.
Yeah.
Because most businesses cannot do that,
Not within the first 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's like, if they're that successful that they could pay him back within 2 years, that's a pretty successful business.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those, they're not necessarily dating. It's just that he finally got to dance with her, and she finally got, allowed herself to like the guy. Here's this guy that's always liked me in high school. What do I got to lose? And I can see there being not necessarily a relationship, but a friendship, maybe a business partnership down the line. But the other than the kiss, I don't think there's any romantic involvement afterwards. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. We don't know. The sequel's a flashback.
Well, yeah, the second movie was a prequel, of the two characters. And like you said, it was played by different people. And it was like a TV movie.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a TV pilot, which was why it was a TV movie. But it was written by the same writer who created the characters and wrote the first movie. Then, of course, they did a musical. Never made it to Broadway. It wasn't even like off Broadway in New York or something. Like, I forget where it actually was, but they did
Seattle,
that.
Seattle, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't anywhere. I was like, maybe it was in LA or something, but yeah, Seattle. And so it never got very far, and I did not hear, like, I do not hear songs from that being sung by, theater kids. So, but now, it has been announced, like, within the last year that they are actively working on a sequel that would have Mira Sorvino and Lisa Kudrow. And the same writer.
Another high school reunion, them as adult, middle-aged women. I don't know. I mean, like, both actresses are close to 60 at this point, so maybe they're like grandparents now or something.
I mean, the characters are supposed to have graduated in 87, so, and they were supposed to be 28 in 97. You can do the math, if they're doing something in, like, 2025 or 2026 or whenever.
I can see them doing for 2027.
Yeah.
For the anniversary of the movie.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Recently, and I sent you the video of this, but recently Mira Sorvino was on Dancing with the Stars, and she talked a lot about Romy and Michelle, and that kind of reignited people talking about why was there never a sequel properly done, you know? And Mira Sorvino did that kind of dance from the end, but with her professional partner and her daughter. And sadly, that was the dance she got voted out on. Which was just like so cruel. And it was like, oh my God. But after that, because she was on the show talking about, you know, Romy and Michelle and how much people liked it, I think that's kind of what got the ball rolling on why have we never done a sequel to this movie, because a lot of people really want it. I really hope they can get Alan Cumming back, because I think everybody would want to know what happened with his character as well.
I mean, he's probably still rich, and who knows? Maybe.
But I mean, as far as in relation to,
yeah.
And I think it would just really suck to be like, oh, here are the two of them, and we just mention off screen, you know.
I think you would also need Janine Garofalo. Maybe not in a main character role. Like, you can have her in for like a cameo, but I kind of feel that character, since they all live in LA together, she would need to be involved in some capacity, in maybe as a frequent customer or something.
I mean, you know, it would be kind of funny if she had like moved with her cowboy boyfriend onto a ranch somewhere or something.
Yeah. I don't think any of the other. I don't think any of the characters would be needed. You can have new characters. You could have them being married with kids or grandkids or whatever direction you want to go with. Maybe they're still single. Maybe they're satisfied in their careers, and I don't know.
The thing is that I think we wrapped up the bullies, except for maybe the Vogue woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if she came back and was like, did a cameo as like, oh, you know, I gave Romy and Michelle's boutique their first Vogue spread or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think that the bullies and the football player, I think we're done with their stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't really care if we heard anything about them again. It might be nice to see Toby having moved on and done something. Like, nothing major, but it would be nice to just see, like, maybe she got a job at Sandy's company after they ran into each other again.
She grew a spine.
Or she stands up for herself a little bit more, you know.
You just want Cameron Manheim in the movie.
Well, I mean, it would be nice to see what happened to that character, because I think she's the only one that didn't get like a wrap up, you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
Everybody else kind of got a wrap up, and the only thing she kind of got to say was, you made my life a living hell, but she didn't really get to be like, you know what, Heather, you fuck off, you know, like...
That's what I said. Maybe she could grow. She didn't really have much of a story. She was just the unpopular fat girl in high school who became kind of a doormat in her adult life.
Yeah, and I would. The only reason I would want that character back is because I don't ever feel like there was any kind of conclusion, quote unquote, to her story. I feel like a lot of the other characters that were sidelined to Romy and Michelle, you know, like the other characters that they ran into, I feel like everybody kind of got like a neat enough little bow. You know, you could just decide that Heather went off with her cowboy and we never see her again. You know, like, yeah, she's there buying clothes or whatever. And maybe that could be because he was like, you know, why do you always wear black? Maybe you should wear a little more colored. She's like, well, whatever, you know, like, I'll try it once or twice if he likes it, you know. And the thing is like, the only thing that's kind of a question is, did their business continue being successful, and was there any kind of romance with Sandy? And then the only other really kind of side question is Toby, who was just kind of there but never got like a button on her storyline.
Mm.
And that's the only reason I would really kind of want a cameo, other than just Cameron Manheim is awesome. Like, you know, who doesn't want to see her pop up somewhere?
So like I mean, Lisa Kudrow, Mira Sorvino, Ellen Cumming, Cameron Manheim. For me, give me a little Janine Garofalo. Just one scene, I'll take it. And I think
me too. I do like her, but you know.
So that's, in my opinion, would be the 5 returning actors for the sequel if you want to go in that direction. And we don't know. I mean, again, sequel talks tend to break down when when actual announcements are happening and not these actors are talking about something.
Yeah, I hope they're actually able to pull it through though, because I think a lot of people would want to see that with the original group.
Mm-hmm. So let's ask the question, Kiki. Does Romy and Michelle's high school reunion have the magic?
I think so. I was pleased that it held up for me. It is still funny and charming as I remember it. As a first-time viewer, what did you think?
I always thought, again, I'll say this, the reason I never saw the movie up to now was that I felt I was not the target audience for this movie. And honestly, after watching the movie, I feel I'm still not the target audience for this movie. But I didn't hate the movie. I didn't love the movie like you do. Again, that's fine. I didn't hate the movie. The movie was not as what I thought it was going to be. Romy and Michelle do have a tendency in the movie to be more on the annoying side for me. I don't want to say this movie has no magic, because there are a lot of funny moments in the movie, and there are a lot of good, honestly, towards the end, a lot of wholesome moments. It's just that throughout that first 2/3 of the movie, Romy and Michelle are very annoying to me. And I was like, I'm doing this for the podcast. I'm doing this because Kiki wants to watch this movie. I'm doing it for my friend. But I didn't hate it. I'll say it has magic, but again, it's not going to be a movie I'm going to come back to.
That's fair.
So, and also, like I said earlier, it really feels like Lisa Kudrow is kind of typecasting him into playing Phoebe.
Yeah, even though this was a role she did before Phoebe. So, yeah. Yeah.
What are they feeding you, smelly cat? What are they feeding you?
Yeah.
So, as for next, Kiki, open up your game consoles, because we're going to be playing some Prince of Persia, the movie adaptation of Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time. We'll see what Disney jumping on the video game adaptation. We've seen them do it before with Super Mario Brothers, but it's been a few years since then. Let's see if they learn from their mistakes with Prince of Persia.
It'll be a first watch for me. I missed that one, so...
Same here. It's going to be very interesting. So come back next week for Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, and we will talk to you all next week. Bye! Don't let the magic stop here. Join our conversations on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic. We are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, at Rewatch the Magic. And new episodes are available every week at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com. Remember, the magic is for everyone. It only stops if you let it. Podcasts are fun,
but there's work to be done.
We encourage you to get involved. Here are some organizations we support.
The American Civil Liberties Union fights for the constitutional rights of all Americans. Find them at aclu.org.
The National Network of Abortion Funds helps people find access to safe abortion services. Their site is abortionfunds.org.
The Trevor Project provides a 24/7 crisis helpline for LGBTQ youth and education services for schools on LGBTQ issues. They can be found at thetrevorproject.org.
Or find a way to help in your area.